The top 4 hiring and recruitment mistakes that you can do to harm your employer branding would be ghosting candidates in the interview process, making a low offer to a candidate, your personal bias throughout the interview process, and also unclear interview process expectations. You need to ensure that the candidate experience is good because they are going to tell others what their interview process and experience was like. And if it's good, that's going to reflect how other people want to interview with you. And if it's bad, then you're probably going to have a harder time getting candidates to interview with you. So ghosting in the interview process is a lot like ghosting in dating, where it's extremely frustrating for the person who doesn't hear back on how the interview went, what next steps are, or even if they aren't a fit, they just need to know that information so they can move on. But sharing no information and going radio silent on a candidate will frustrate them and harm your employer branding overall. Establishing when you're going to communicate with a candidate in the interview process and during each step, and having that be really consistent, is a really good way to avoid ghosting a candidate even by mistake. Be upfront in the very early stages of the interview process what the compensation range and package is. And it's also really, really important not to deviate from that and offer something lower than that when you get further on. That will really frustrate a candidate and make them feel very undervalued. If you offer something lower than what the candidate is expecting or lower than the range that you provided, what happens is the candidate, again, feels very undervalued. They don't feel like they're going to be valued at the company. And most often they're going to have several other offers that might be higher, and so you're losing your chance to get that candidate hired because of that. DMR can act as a really good partner with you and the candidate to ensure a compensation offer that lands well with everyone. So what we do in the beginning is we establish what their compensation needs are, and we establish what your compensation range is and make sure that that matches. And then we communicate to both parties so there's no misunderstanding when you get later on in the stage of an actual offer. So oftentimes you can have a personal bias or multiple personal biases in the interview process, whether it's intentional or not. Things like gender, religion, the way somebody dresses and presents themselves are all considered personal biases, and something that you should avoid because it's not always important to who can actually do the role. To prevent personal biases in the interview process, try and look at each candidate as their own individual person and try and take your own personal beliefs and preferences out of the equation and solely focus on, can this person do the role? Are they qualified for the role? Would they fit in with the work culture and branding? Set clear expectations in the interview process and also set expectations of when the candidate will hear back from you. Similar to how you're interviewing the candidate for the role, they are also interviewing you and your company to make sure there's a good fit. So the more consistent you can be with the process and the communication, that is going to reflect better on your employer branding overall. DMR can partner with you as the employer and the candidate to really understand your employer branding and translate that correctly to the candidate and make sure that they really have a good understanding of who you are as an employer and a brand.